I should have turned around the moment I saw the blue minivan in my driveway. At 63 years old, you develop a sense for when something isn't right, when silence has been replaced by something you never agreed to. But I didn't turn back. I walked to the door of my mountain lodge, the place I built with my own hands, the place where my late wife's memory still lingers in the wood and stone. And when I stepped inside and saw who was living there, I realized the real invasion wasn't of my home. It was of my boundaries. Welcome to my YouTube channel Moral Ecos, where silence speaks. My name is Isla Martin. I am 63 years old, and I have learned that the most dangerous theft is not when someone steals your money. It is when they slowly begin to believe they own your silence. The day I drove to my mountain lodge to refresh my weary soul, and found my son and his wife's family living there as if it were theirs, something inside me shifted forever. This is that story. I went to my mountain lodge to refresh, and found my son and his wife's family living there. The mountains have always told me the truth. Not gently, not kindly, but clearly. My lodge sits tucked deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, far enough from the main road that you won't find it unless you mean to. I built it 32 years ago when my back was strong and my dreams were stronger. Every plank, every nail, every stone in that fireplace carries the echo of my younger hands. My late wife, Eleanor, used to run her fingers along the wooden beams and say, "Issels, this place breathes." After cancer took her 5 years ago, the lodge became the only place where I could still hear her laugh in the wind, the only place where grief felt less like drowning and more like floating. I had not been up there in several months. Life in the city had grown noisy, birthdays, school recitals, errands for Daniel, last-minute babysitting requests. I loved my family, but I was tired. Not physically, spiritually. At 63, you begin to recognize when your soul is asking for space. So one quiet Thursday morning, without telling anyone, I packed a small suitcase, brewed coffee for the road, and began the 3-hour drive north. I imagined silence. I imagined the lake at sunset. I imagined sitting by the stone fireplace with nothing but my thoughts. What I did not imagine was a blue minivan parked in my driveway. The first crack. The dirt road leading to the lodge is narrow and curved like an old scar. As I turned the bend and saw tire tracks pressed fresh into the earth, my stomach tightened. Then I saw the minivan. Not parked like someone passing through. Parked like someone staying. Children's bikes leaned against my porch railing. A laundry line stretched from the pine tree to the side of my deck. My deck. For a moment, I genuinely wondered if I had taken the wrong turn. But there was the carved wooden sign I made decades ago. Martin Lodge. I stepped out of my truck slowly. My boots felt heavier than usual. The porch swing moved gently. Voices drifted through the open window. Laughter. From my living rooms. I approached the door, heart pounding in a way it hadn't since my wife's final hospital night. The door was unlocked. I turned the handle and stepped inside. Dad. The scent hit me first. Not pinewood. Not the faint cedar I always left in the closets. No. Spaghetti sauce. Strong, unfamiliar, invasive. A woman I recognized vaguely from Daniel's wedding stood at my stove, stirring a pot. Karen's sister. 2 teenage boys sat at my dining table playing cards. A little girl ran across the rug Eleanor had chosen 20 years ago, dragging her stuffed rabbit. And in my recliner sat my son. Dad, Daniel stood up quickly. You didn't say you were coming. I stared at him. I didn't know I needed to. The room fell silent. Karen's mother walked out from the hallway carrying folded laundry, my towels. Oh, she said brightly, Mr. Martin, we didn't expect you today. Expect me? In my own house. The casual betrayal. Daniel walked toward me like this was a mild misunderstanding. We've been using the lodge for a few weeks, he said. Karen's parents needed somewhere to stay while their house gets renovated. A few weeks. The word echoed like a gunshot in my ears. You've been here, I repeated slowly, for weeks. He nodded. Yeah, you weren't using it. There it was. The justification. Unused equals available. Available equals hours. You didn't think to ask me, I said quietly. He hesitated. It's family. Family. I looked around. My framed photo of Eleanor and me had been moved from the mantel to a side shelf. The old radio I restored years ago had been unplugged and replaced with a sleek Bluetooth speaker. The kitchen curtains, Eleanor's floral choice, were gone. In their place hung beige, modern ones. Temporary people do not change curtains. I do mind, I said. Daniel frowned. Dad, don't make this bigger than it is. Bigger? This was not about space. It was about respect. The weight of memory. That night I didn't sleep in my bedroom. I couldn't. Corinne's parents had taken it. Instead, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling beams I installed in my 30s. I remembered hammering nails while Eleanor handed them to me, laughing when I bent one sideways. I remembered Daniel at age 8, running barefoot across this very floor. I remembered winter nights when snow covered the porch, and we'd sit by the fire drinking cocoa. And now, I was a guest. In my own memories. The argument. The confrontation came the next morning. We stood outside by the porch, the lake shimmering behind us. You're overreacting, Daniel said. I'm hurt, I replied. It's just a house. I looked at him steadily. No, it's the last place your mother ever felt whole. That silenced him for a moment. Then he said something that cut deeper than anything else. You barely come here anymore, Dad. I swallowed. You know why? I asked. He didn't answer. Because after your mother died, it was the only place I could feel her, and sometimes that hurts too much. His face softened slightly. But pride is a stubborn thing, especially in men. He crossed his arms again. We needed it. And you decided that need gave you permission. He had no response. The final straw. For 3 days I endured it. Children running through the halls. Strangers cooking in my kitchen. Corinne organizing my cabinets. Then on the 4th afternoon, I walked outside and saw something that broke whatever restraint I had left. Eleanor's quilt, the last thing she ever finished before chemotherapy weakened her hands, was spread on the grass. Juice stains soaked into the pale blue fabric. The little girl laughed as she stepped on it with muddy shoes. Something in my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I picked up the quilt gently, brushing dirt away with shaking hands. And in that moment, grief turned into resolve. You need to leave. I walked inside, holding the quilt. Everyone, I said firmly, please pack your things today. Corinne looked shocked. Issel's we. No, I interrupted softly but clearly. This was never offered, it was taken. Daniel stepped forward. Dad. I love you, I said, my voice trembling despite my effort, but love does not mean access without permission. The room was quiet. Even the children sensed the shift. Corinne's parents began packing without protest. Perhaps they understood what Daniel didn't yet. Daniel lingered. You're choosing a building over family, he said bitterly. No, I replied, I'm choosing respect. The silence after. When they finally drove away, the dust from the minivan hung in the air long after it disappeared down the road. I stood on the porch alone. The mountains felt still. But something inside me had awakened. I walked through every room slowly, restoring what I could. Photos back to the mantel. Old radio plugged in. Curtains rehung from storage. I washed Eleanor's quilt by hand in the sink, tears falling quietly into the water. That night I sat by the fireplace. For the first time in years I felt strong. Lonely, but strong. The call. A week later Daniel called. His voice lacked its usual confidence. Dad, I've been thinking. I hoped you would. I was wrong, he said quietly. I didn't consider what the lodge means to you. No, I answered, you didn't. There was a long pause. I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. But it was sincere. And sincerity heals more than perfection ever could. A different conversation. A month later, Daniel came alone. He brought new fishing rods and a professional cleaner for the quilt. We sat by the lake just as we had when he was a boy. Why didn't you say something sooner? He asked. Because I've spent most of my life trying not to inconvenience anyone, I said, and somewhere along the way that taught people I had no limits. He nodded slowly. I don't want you to feel like background furniture in our lives, he said. I smiled faintly. Then don't treat me like something that's always there no matter how it's used. What I learned at 63. At 63 years old, I learned that generosity must have boundaries, or it becomes self-erasure. I learned that silence is often mistaken for consent. I learned that even your own children can forget that you are not just dad. You are a man. With memories. With grief. With sacred spaces. The lodge still stands in the mountains. The wind still moves through the pines. And when I unlock the door now, I feel peace again, not because I shut my family out, but because I invited them back properly. With respect. With conversation. With permission. My name is Issels Martin, and I am 63 years old. And if there is one thing these mountains have taught me, it is this. Love your family. Give generously. But never surrender the places that keep your soul alive. Because once you lose your sacred ground, you lose yourself. And no one, no matter how close they are, has the right to take that from you.